Hi everyone. I am sorry I'm missing today, but I wanted to go ahead and start our next project even though we have a sub today. So make sure that you watch this entire thing because I'm going to go over my expectations and also talk about the next project that you are doing, as well as who is going to be your partner and when our timeline is, what our timeline is. So follow along with me and then I will get to all of that here in just a few minutes. So last time we talked about different learning styles. I want you to keep those things in mind when you are planning a lesson. Today you're going to be planning a mini lesson. This is something we do in Ready, Set, Teach, but even if you don't want to be a teacher, like I mentioned before, this is still a skill that will be very, very useful to you because you're going to have to give presentations in the future and have to teach how to do certain things. So bear with me and we'll go ahead and get started. So when you are putting together your lesson with your partner, I want you to ask yourself 3 questions. Where are your students going? That's going to be your objective. How are they going to get there? That's all the activities that you're going to do in order to teach the objective. And how are you going to know that they've arrived? How are you going to know that they've achieved the objective? And that is your assessment. Okay, so I briefly introduced you to the TEKS. That's the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, and you can find those on Google, and you can also find the link on our Google Classroom. And basically that's just skills that the state of Texas has said your students need to know by the end of the school year. Each grade level, each subject has a very specific set of TEKS for your students. Okay. And the STAR test is based on the TEKS that they are covered. Okay, so what do they look like? Your TEKS are going to build upon each other. So you may have a listening TEK starting in kindergarten, and you're going to have that same TEK throughout all the way through high school, except it's going to develop more and include more things. Here's an example. This is an example TEK for a 3rd grade math. And you're going to see, this is what you're going to see on the TEKS, right? You're going to see all of this stuff, but you just want to cover in your lesson, construct concrete models of fractions. So what you're going to write is 111.15, which is right here. Then B, then you're going to put 3.2a. So it's kind of like an outline getting you to this one TEK, which is construct concrete models of fractions. All you're going to write out is construct concrete models of fractions. You're going to write these numbers out and then these one specific TEK. You don't need to include all of this other stuff. Okay? And you can find them on Google by typing TEKS, or you can find them in our Google Classroom. Okay, if you want, and I can pull those up here in a little bit, but if you want elementary, you're going to scroll to the bottom of the page and you're going to click the grade level. If you want to do middle school or high school, a little more towards the top, they're subject specific. So you choose which one you want. Today what I want you to do is instead of reading through all the TEKS, I want you to, with your partner, to pick a grade level that you wish to do and a subject area, and then open the TEKS and scroll through those specific TEKS for that grade and subject area. Your TEKS are supposed to drive your instruction, meaning they are supposed to be your starting point. Okay, it's going to determine what you're going to teach, not just because you have a cute little activity you want to do and now you got to go find a TEK. Technically, you need to have a TEK, and then it drives what you teach your students. Okay, writing objectives. What do you want your students to learn as a result of your lesson? You're going to start it with the student will be able to. You always start your objective, and this is going to make more sense here in a little bit, but you're going to start it with the student will be able to, and then you're going to add a verb. You can use the same verb that is on the TEK, okay? But in this case, I've got the student will be able to construct, and then it says add the criteria for what you want your students to be able to do by the end of the lesson. The students will be able to construct concrete models of fractions. Okay, pretty simple. That is what you want your students to be able to do by the end of the lesson. Your objective and your TEK are going to look a lot alike. The difference is sometimes your TEKs are really long and wordy and you only want to do part of a TEK. So you're going to have in your objective exactly by the end of the lesson what you want your students to do. So it may be only a portion of the TEK that is included in that objective. Okay, so they should be measurable and observable. You should be able to observe that your students have achieved that objective. You should be able to measure. You should be able to grade that they've achieved that objective by the end of the lesson. Here's some examples. The students will be able to compare and contrast the two versions of the Three Little Pigs. Compare and contrast are your verb. The student will be able to record facts about the moon. Here's your verb, record. The students will be able to recite the alphabet in Spanish. Recite is your verb. The student will be able to identify the capitals of each state. Identify is your verb. The students will be able to create a timeline for the events of World War II. Create is your verb. And again, a lot of times you're going to see the verb in the TEK, but you can always change your verb. It doesn't matter. You cannot say the student will be able to understand. That is not a Bloom's verb. I'm not going to go too much into Bloom's taxonomy verbs, but understand is not necessarily easy to measure or observe, I guess you could say. I guess in some ways it is, but that one does not count. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the parts of your lesson. Again, all this will make sense here in just a little bit, so just bear with me. Your anticipatory set, the word you probably hear in that is anticipate. Okay, so if you're thinking about a book, or I'm sorry, a paper or a story, okay, the beginning of the story, which grabs you in, is the hook that grabs you, the reader, into the story. Well, that's like the anticipatory set is like the hook, but of your lesson. Okay, so how are you going to grab your students' attention at the very beginning? So be thinking about whenever you are planning your lesson, you need something to grab their attention. Obviously, it has to do with what you're teaching too. Okay, so it's the attention getter. It grabs their attention. Okay. Here's some examples, maybe, and I'm just going to read a few of them. Maybe you would say something like, can you imagine seeing a volcano erupt? Write down 5 things you might see. Or maybe you might give them a story, or you might show them a picture of something, or you might, show them a startling fact about whatever you're reading. Maybe you're going to read them a short little story, something like that, okay? All right, so then the second part, this is kind of like the middle of your story, of your lesson. I'm going to compare it back and forth to a story. This is like the meat of your story, okay? So this is your activities. This is how you are teaching the objective, okay? So if you're teaching fractions, this is where you're actually going to physically be teaching them about fractions and what 2/3 would look like maybe on a pie chart or whatever, and you'd be shading it in. This is where you actually have to teach. You are going to actually have to teach them something. You're going to pretend like your students know nothing. You're going to pretend like your peers know nothing about fractions or whatever TEK you are covering, okay? So what activities is the teacher going to do to get the students to achieve the given objective? And I want you to consider those different learning styles. You're going to have some think about your visual learners, think about your auditory learners, think about your kinesthetic and your tactile learners, okay? So you can incorporate some of those learning styles at this point right here. Your conclusion and assessment and check for understanding. This is how you are checking that they have understood what you just taught them. So that might be an activity, and that's probably a good idea time to have an activity. Again, maybe think about something tactile they can do, or maybe something kinesthetic, they can get up and do something. So checking or having them practice the skill. And then maybe then doing something independent where you can then check to see that they have understood it. Okay, how are you going to wrap up your activity? How are you going to determine if what you taught was understood? And you can't just end the lesson with, did you like the lesson? Your end of your lesson, maybe that's where they'll have a ticket out the door. Or you might ask them a question. You're going to have the students answer questions, or maybe you're going to play a game, or maybe you have a quiz. How are you summing up your lesson? Okay, so here are some examples of lesson closures. And pair share is basically where you would say, okay, I'm going to give you a minute, and I want you to talk with a shoulder partner about, and give them a question. You give them a minute, and then you call on people, and they share out loud. Okay. Here's a lesson plan format, and I'm going to show you an example lesson plan, but it does need to be in this particular format. I am going to have y'all do this just like I have my Ready, Set, Teach students do this. So it is take some time. So again, those are all the things that have to be included in your lesson plan. Okay, and ignore this. All right, so now what you're going to be doing today is you're going to be filling out this sheet. You're not going to be typing anything today. You will eventually be typing something. But for today, this is kind of your brainstorm sheet. You're going to be finding your TEK, and this is where you're going to write the TEK, and you're going to write the number, and you're going to write out the TEK. you're going to write your objective. The student will be able to, whether it's compare, something or whatever your verb is, and then you're going to write out the rest of your objective. Okay, and I'll have on the board some example TEKS and objectives written so you can kind of see how they are similar but yet a little different. All the materials that you need, those are the materials that you, as the teacher, will need to teach your lesson. The grade level, how much time. I'm going to say make your lesson for 20 minutes. I will probably cut you off sooner, but you need to pretend like you have 20 minutes, a full 20 minutes that you have to fill to teach this lesson. So you're going to have to think, how long would this take to teach third graders whatever skill, okay? And make sure you have enough activities in there that will fill that time. Okay, so again, your anticipatory set is your attention grabber, your hook. What are you going to do to grab their attention in the beginning? Okay, maybe if you're teaching fractions, maybe you're going to give them something where they are going to take one little section out, and then you're going to compare that to how that would be 1/4 of a pizza or whatever. I don't know, whatever you're going to do, or maybe you're going to show them some pictures of something, okay? But how are you going to grab their attention? Usually the anticipatory set is just a couple minutes. It's usually pretty short, okay? Then your instructional procedures. These are going to be different than your anticipatory set in the sense of you're not repeating what you did in your anticipatory set in your instructional procedures. This is where you're teaching the objective, okay? I need you to make this very specific, step by step. So you may even number 1, teacher will blah, blah, blah. 2, next. 3, next. Step by step. These need to be very specific. Time needed. I need for each step you to tell me how much time that's going to take. So if it's going to take 2 minutes, write 2 minutes. If it's going to take 1 minute, 1 minute. If it's going to take 30 seconds, 30 seconds. Pass out papers. Pass out, instructions. Whatever you're doing, write every single thing step by step, okay? You're not going to just write one thing here because that will not get your objective taught, okay? So all the things that you're going to do to teach the objective here step by step, okay? And I'm having you write time so that you're thinking through how much time everything will take, okay? Then the activities. This is what students are doing to practice the skill, okay? And you might have had them practicing something here as well, but this might be an independent thing. This might be a partner thing. This might be a game. What activities you're going to do. Check for understanding. This might be just use some, giving them an assignment or a game or whatever. So yes, these are separate. So again, how you're teaching the lesson, what activities to practice the skill, maybe what are they going to turn in to show their understanding of the material. And this might be just you summarizing a few of the main points from the lesson, okay? So each part of this lesson plan needs to be specific and detailed, step by step, and how much time it will take, okay? I'm going to go ahead and stop this video here and start a new video so that this will be uploaded to YouTube and it will not be too big.